3, 2, 1, end of test. Skiing with a go.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and today we're continuing with dive bombers, although this one is a little different. It's a dive torpedo bomber, so we'll kind of talk about that. And it is a unique design, another British aircraft, but first, my intrepid assistant, Jason, has ensconced me with, I have to look at this one. Is this a ram?
Let it go! Let it go!
A ram, thank you. So, you want me to, it's a ram. So I'm trying to get his attention here. You can't see him off camera. See, he's like Mr. Spock. There's no emotion whatsoever.
Fascinating.
So we're going to talk today about the Barracuda. Its first flight was in 1940. I'm going to go ahead and grab another venerable aircraft to fill my hands, the Spitfire. I'll throw up a plan view. Greg in post can throw up a plan view of the Barracuda. Now, the interesting thing about the Barracuda is it actually started out as a replacement. The Air Ministry wanted a replacement for the Albacore, the biplanes, and they wanted something fast and lethal. What they got their money's worth for this airplane. It was the Barracuda was not only used as a dive bomber, which it was also used as a torpedo bomber, but it did have an interesting quirk to it, Jason. I'm going to tell you about that. It was responsible for, there were a number of unexplained losses with this aircraft with very high time pilots, and I'm going to tell you what that was. But it came out of this 1937 Air Arm Directive. It was, first flight was in 1940. It was introduced in 1943. There were 2,602 of them built. It's a big aircraft. Now, big aircraft means big power plant, right? They started with the Rolls-Royce XX block. That was a sleeve valve engine, but they had a lot of production problems with it. And so they went with a Merlin Mark 30. Now, what that happened with the size of the airplane is it was completely underpowered. So the first versions of the aircraft were very underpowered. But again, and I've said it through this whole thing, the winds of war are there. It's got to go into service. So they moved it into service. It had some quirky issues with its rudder and its dive brakes, which would, the early versions would cause trim changes in the aircraft and could throw the aircraft into a spin, which they learned. That is extremely bad. But other than that, the aircraft was very, very useful to the British. This is one where a Swiss Army knife aircraft, which I'm generally pretty critical of, but this is one that they really got their use out of. And this is going to take me to the brake here. I'm going to go ahead and put the Spitfire on its spindle. And the folks that I want to salute today are people that never get any recognition, and that is carrier aircraft from the British Navy. The British Navy has a long history of carrier operations, and they are extremely good at it, all the way up through World War II to the Falklands, where they fought in an incredibly bad environment with aircraft, the Harriers that weren't really set up for fleet air defense. The British Navy by that time had become more of a, it was slotted into NATO, and so it had a very special function in NATO, which was primarily anti-submarine. You can argue with me if you don't agree with me. This is a Cold War function. When the Falklands broke out, they had to provide air superiority for their fleet, and they had an extremely difficult time with that. But given the exceptional seamanship of the Royal Navy and their long history of carrier operations, they were able to pull it off. But this goes all the way back to World War II, and they never get any credit. One of the things that the British did with their carriers, and this is a little bit off topic, is their carriers were all armored deck carriers. And so, although they weren't quite as big and didn't have as quite a big of a complement of aircraft, the kamikazes late in the war for the British aircraft carriers were not as serious as the American aircraft carriers, which the kamikazes could get through that flight deck and into the hangar decks and just wreak havoc. So to the carrier air arm of the Great Britain and the Royal Navy, I'm going to salute you with a Malta Hatatui. What's a Hatatui? You have any idea? A non-alcohol cereal beverage. A cereal beverage? Jason, you have really gone off the page here. 240 calories in this thing? My goodness. All right, does have a California cash refund. Let's go ahead. Oh, it did fizz there. We'll give it a shot. So all of you at the Royal Navy Air Arm, I am taking one for the team.
It smells like tomato juice.
Mm. Oh, wow. Who would drink that? You know what it tastes like? It tastes like bottled prunes. He's smiling. You're smiling at my torture.
Fascinating.
Oh, second sip. That is absolutely disgusting. It's one of those things, and that's actually a fairly new beverage. I don't know what the heck that is. So eventually on the Barracuda, they went to a Mark 32 engine, gave it a little bit more power, but the end-all be-all for the aircraft was they were trying to get the Griffin engine, the much more powerful Griffin engine. I think, if memory serves, there were about 30 of them that were produced. Don't hold me to that. By the end of the war, they had production problems. They couldn't get them there. So the airplane was, I would say, habitually underpowered. It could have had more power. Due to the size of the airplane, it's a problem. The hallmark time of the aircraft were its attack on the Tirpitz. Did a number of attacks on the Tirpitz, and it was used as a dive bomber later in the war because there just weren't as many ships to fly torpedo missions on. So as that dual mission aircraft, it became more and more used as a dive bomber. In the Far East, the heat impacted the aircraft greatly, and I want to say that it impacted its range by about 30%, so it wasn't as effective. It was designed more as a European aircraft or used in the Atlantic, but they did use them in the Far East, but they did have range problems with them. Now, I was going to tell you about a little incident or a group of incidents. The aircraft, they were having a number of unexplained losses with the airplane. They couldn't figure out why. They eventually did some testing, and they found out that some of the gauges in the cockpit would leak and spray the pilot in the face with hydraulic fluid. Now, what was in the hydraulic fluid? Ether. Because you want your hydraulic fluid to cause your pilot to pass out if he's exposed to it. So the hydraulic fluid was laced with ether, which would cause the pilot, if he got sprayed, to lose consciousness, hence the loss of the airplane. The Royal Navy and anybody who was operating it after that point said, you got to keep your oxygen mask on because the guys, below, let's say 10,000 feet weren't wearing them. And that's what contributed to the airplane. Once they made them wear the oxygen mask, which had to be uncomfortable as all get out, then they stopped losing the airplanes because they weren't breathing ether. Jason likes to drink hydraulic fluid laced ether all the time. That may be what that is right there. I'm going to pass out any moment. So after that, the end of the war, the aircraft, like so many that we've talked about, was functionally obsolete. It went into history. There are some examples in Royal Navy museums in various stages of rebuild and disrepair. And so I encourage you to look at that, but not many of them move forward to the point that I know of where they're on display complete. But again, the UK does a tremendous job holding on to these aircraft, and their museums are just bar none as far as display aircraft. So check out some of the museums over there, and I know that there's 2 or 3 of them that have these in pieces or various stages of, I want to call, discovery. Now, as you can see, I am standing in front of the hero of Midway, the SBD Dauntless. This is actually the first restoration that the museum did about 30 years ago at our restoration department. We are so grateful. This aircraft spent a lot of time on the bottom of the Great Lakes. It was one of those recovered. We want to thank our restoration crew, but we cannot do this without your help and support. So click on that link in this description. Send us a few shekels.
The Hebrew word of the day is shekel. Shin, kuf, lamed.
If you came across us on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, give us a comment. We love comments. We love suggestions. Give us that kind of stuff. We would love for you to participate. And so give us ideas on your next stuff. Now, if you are sitting at home, and I have pitched this one before, if you want to do something and you're a little bored, look at this thing. This is absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous painting that you can make at home. Jason makes each one of these himself. He paints them, and he'll take it. He doesn't really do that, but he'll take it down to the store and mail it to you, or ship it. So go ahead and click on the merchandise link. That is a beautiful Spitfire. And if you're teaching the kiddos at home, the education links, you can teach one lesson, you can teach an entire series of lessons. Those links are free, and we encourage you to download them and take advantage of them. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
3, 2, 1, end of test. Team with a go.
Rise to the blessed day, all my fears have gone away. I guess this means I'm here to stay. Yeah, I'm ready to fly, ready to fly. Wasn't long ago I shook at the thought of being hooked. But ever since I wrote my book, I'm ready to fly, ready to fly.
Come along and join us, we can plug you in a simulator. We'll teach you how to dance and be